It's been a fun lead up to this, Mr. Pellegrino. How are you doing?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing well, and welcome to everybody that's tuned in early for this little pregame that we're doing. Hopefully they can hear us okay. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you fine. I actually can't. I shut it off my speakers, so I can't tell if it's coming through on the stream, but I can hear you totally fine.
Good. Well, hopefully they can too. We're hearing that it sounds good. So listen, this is the big one. This is the $20,000 prize pool. This is a big event for fantasy, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's the first time anybody has really done something like this. We wanted to kind of take a chance and put together a group where we can have a really high stakes game like this and get it out to everybody, have people be able to follow it, kind of pick favorites, and the fact that it's stretching over 4 weeks kind of combines the two, seasonal and daily fantasy. So it'll give people a little bit more time to kind of follow the standings and really be able to root for somebody.
So tell us a little bit about the 4-week adventure that you've got planned over on Buzz Drive.
Sure. So this was made to kind of kick off our fall championship of fantasy sports. It's, as you said, it's a $2,000 buy-in. There's 10 guys, a $20,000 prize pool. The only way to get into this was to be one of the 8 invited guys. There's 5 invited poker pros, 3 invited fantasy players, and then we gave away 2 seats in satellite. So there's 2 satellite winners, and those are the only ways to get in. And once this starts, they'll be competing over week 13 to week 16 of the NFL. And during that time, while everyone is following this and keeping track, we'll be running our own events, the Fall Championship of Fantasy Sports. We'll have a lot of really big tournaments for basketball and football every weekend throughout the whole thing. We'll have a tournament leaderboard. We're giving away prizes. So it's going to be a pretty big deal. It's going to be an awesome month.
Yeah, so that's completely different though than what we're doing tonight, right? So you've got something set up for everyone to join as well, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And tonight, what's the difference? What are we doing tonight? What's the difference?
So tonight is it's the 2K buy-in. It's the auction draft, and the players are going to be auctioning live on Skype. So they'll each have a turn to nominate a player, and then they'll all be bidding on that player. And whoever bids the highest has that player on their roster. They're each going to bid until they're out of money and fill up their 16 auction spots. And then they'll have those teams over the next 4 weeks. And that's what we'll be able to follow is kind of how they do with those teams.
It's funny, Brian. When I ask you these questions, you're kind of like stopping yourself because you know that I know the answers. But I'm asking them for the people that are listening and will be listening down the road when this is replayed later. So... So why don't we just go through? I mean, first off, let's go through who's in this because it's a pretty star-studded lineup of people that are in this. I mean, you and I we took the time earlier this week to interview each one of these guys, and I have to say each one of them brings something to the table. And I have to also say that I'm very impressed with 2 satellite winners. These aren't just 2 random guys, are they?
No, definitely not. And it could have been. There was quite a few entries in there, and kind of people of all skill level, and some people it was their first time on the site. But the 2 ended up taking it down in what ended up being a really, really close race. Kind of a wild game on Monday night with Bryce Brown putting up so many points. One of them, Killa B, was he's the number 1 guy on the leaderboards right now on Buzz Draft. He came on the site at the start of football season. It's kind of the only season he really puts a lot of time into and plays, and he held on. He barely clinched a spot in the bigger satellite, the $109 one. And so, I mean, he's a machine. He got on the site, and he just crushed from the very start. He sits all the stakes, and he's been awesome to have around and just see what he does. And the other is Ben J3K, who also has been around on the site for a really long time, but plays a lot lower stakes. He satellited into the satellite from one of the $1 or $5 qualifiers. So he came from a really, really low buy-in. Despite, he plays all the time. He's good. He's really good at fantasy, but he just hasn't really moved up the stakes yet. And so he won that satellite into the big satellite, and then he shipped the big satellite, the $22 100 man, then won his seat.
That's incredible, man. So let's then go through the list of the guys that are showing up from the fantasy side of things. Let's start off with Head Chopper. When we talk to that guy, it sure seems to me like he's got the most experience in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, so he's been around seasonal fantasy for a really, really long time. He has been in daily fantasy pretty much from the very, very beginning. He's a machine. He's considered by most people, to be the number one or very close to the number one. He's really sick at college football and fantasy football, so he's the favorite going into it, is what everyone seems to think.
And we're going to get into that too. In a few minutes, we're going to be joined by one of the owners of Lou Dogs, which is a community-based daily fantasy website. They do all sports stuff there, anyways. But we're going to be joined by him. He's going to talk about that because you brought up favorite to win. They actually posted odds on the actual guys that are competing against us, so that will be interesting to get into that. So we got Head Chopper. Like I said, he's the favorite to win, like you said. I took from it that he's very confident and he's also very humble. So I think Head Chopper definitely, if things play out as they should, he will definitely be the one to win. Next up, we have CJP22, Chris, and he is one of the guys over at Lou Dogs as well, and they sort of brought together like a community in this draft, didn't they?
Yeah. So he started with, he decided he's going to get himself in, but he's really involved in Lou Dogs, and he decided he was going to make a community effort. So he went in, they made some private forum for all the members there, and they all spent a lot of time really doing research and getting into this. And they're going to be doing their picks kind of based on the community feedback as a whole and who that group. So it's not going to be just him individually. It was everybody, kind of a team effort who put into coming up with their sheet of who they want to draft and how much they're going to spend on each player. So he took a really interesting approach to it. We'll see how it pays off. There are a lot of really smart guys there.
Yeah, definitely. There definitely is a lot of smart guys. And next up from the fantasy side, last but definitely not least, is CSU Ram 88. Now this guy, he just sounds to me like he's like the Bill Gates of fantasy daily betting.
I mean, he could be turning into that. He came from a poker background and then a finance background after Black Friday, and just recently left that to pursue fantasy full time. So he's been crushing since he got into it. He takes a really methodical, calculated approach to it. He does a lot of research. So no, he's definitely someone to watch.
Definitely, he's on the high list or the short list, I guess, of the fantasy guys as well. All three of these guys definitely have a big shot to take this down. Going to the next set, now we got our poker players. And it's funny because when we start talking about the odds, the guys over at Lou Dogs has Jason Mercier as like the favorite of the poker guys to win this, and yet when we did that interview with him, he's not really a fantasy guy. So starting off, let's talk about Jason Mercier. I mean, he won the Daniel Negreanu 25K draft 2 years in a row, so he's got experience with doing these sort of auction drafts for poker players. I wonder how that's going to turn out for him for sports.
Sure. So I think actual auction drafts, he obviously has a ton of experience with. I think he's really going to know the format down perfectly. He's an underdog because he doesn't know fantasy that well. He hasn't been following specific players as far as knowing matchups in the coming weeks, and kind of how it's going to affect each person's value, and just kind of the deeper you get into rosters is kind of the weaker that he's going to be. He knows the starters. He's familiar with sports. He's a big sports fan, but he definitely won't have as much of a well-rounded knowledge as the rest of guys when it comes to fantasy. But he does have that ton of experience in an auction drafting and the format itself.
For sure. Next up, we have Brian B. Rip C23. Not really sure what that means, but Mr. Cavers. And again, he's been playing this for a while. He's also a poker player.
Yep. Yeah. No. He most of these guys come from 2+2. They come from the high stakes forum there, and so they've all been around poker for a really long time. He is one of the ones who actually is a really, really big fantasy guy. He has as much experience, it sounds like, as any of these other fantasy guys going into it. So he will, he's definitely one to watch. I think in the odds, he's definitely undervalued. I think him and a couple other poker guys who have just a ton of fantasy experience will be ones to watch for sure.
I was thinking the same thing. When these guys were posting these odds, it's like they didn't even listen. And we're gonna bring on Mr. Lou Dogs here in a second, but I'm gonna ask him to say, listen, dude, like, didn't you listen to these interviews? Of some of these poker guys are straight up fantasy players now. They don't even play as much poker, so don't really know how they came up with these odds. This is just for fun, obviously. Next up, let me just pull up my sheet here. Next up, we have Kyle Johnson, another one of these guys. It just sounds like he knows what's going on here.
Yeah, it's pretty much, like you said, it's a guy who's high stakes poker player, plays a little bit maybe now, but he's really into fantasy. He puts a lot of time into it, and he knows his stuff. He's been around for a long time playing fantasy, and he seems really confident.
Definitely, yeah. I think all the poker guys felt confident. Ryan Dodge, this guy, he went up as high as 300, 600 PLO, was playing against the best players in the world. That was a really fun interview with him. But another guy that just seems like he's got a full arsenal of tools to be able to really put together a good team here.
Yeah, so I mean, he really hasn't been into fantasy very long at all. He just started, but he really likes sports. He's got into handicapping and some other stuff. He's been in all forms of poker, very successful, even up to the very highest stakes. And he's hoping to bring kind of a little bit of a skill set from all of those areas and hope to do some big things here.
Last but not least, Kyle, Mr. KGB, Broza. Let me tell you, he was hard to get a hold of, number one. And two, the guy really knows his stuff as well. Stopped playing, I think, pretty much poker after Black Friday and really doesn't miss it. Has sort of got into the fantasy stuff. Again, another one of these guys that definitely could put together a team that could be very viable to take this thing down.
Yeah, I agree completely. I actually didn't know it was him, that he's Ridge Runner on some of the other sites, and I play in a year-long league with him, kind of a mix. It's a year-long daily league, so you have a $1,700 buy-in, and a certain number goes to the prize every week, and a certain number goes to the end of the year standing. So I'm in a year-long league with him, and his teams are good. He's very good, and he's been crushing. So he'll definitely be one to watch. And it's funny that until today, I didn't even realize that they were the same person. So he's very good.
Funny what you will learn. All right, listen, let's take a quick little break, and we'll be joined on the show, the pregame show here for the Buzz Draft, 20K guaranteed. This is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be starting in just about 45 minutes. We'll be right back with the owner of Lou Dogs to talk a little bit about how they come up with the odds. Sound good?
Yep, perfect.
Glad to introduce right now I think the owner of, and maybe the guy behind the whole concept of LouDogs.com. Are you there, sir?
Yes, I am. Hey, it's Adam from Lou Dogs. How are things going tonight?
See, Adam, I wasn't sure if we could use your name, so I was just calling you Mr. Lou Dogs. Welcome to the pregame show. Not really sure where we're going to go with this, but you're here with Mr. Pellegrino, the founder of Buzz Draft, and the guy behind this fall championship of fantasy sports, which looks like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, hey Brian, how's it going, man? Yeah, I mean, how could you not be fired up about what's going on tonight? I mean, these guys are going to be trying to pull down 20 grand across the board, so super excited. I know the guys over at Lou Dogs are fired up about it, and if you're a fan of daily fantasy sports, man, this type of thing, it just doesn't get any better than this, man. People from all over the place coming together trying to pull down the cash. So yeah, really fired up.
Now, just tell me this much, because I know you're really into daily fantasy stuff. I was reading a few tweets today, and Wednesdays seem like they're a pretty damn busy day for NBA lineups.
Yeah, Wednesday there are, I think traditionally on Wednesday you see a lot of games coming up, so therefore there's a lot of players in the player pool to draw from. So the threads get really active in the NBA fantasy forum with guys debating and discussing and learning and who's in, who's out, who's a late scratch. You look at like Kobe Bryant shows up and drops 100 on whoever they're playing. So yeah, the guys are always in there debating. They do a fantastic job. I don't get too involved. I like to sit back and just read and watch these guys go to work. They are true professionals of this craft. I mean, they're really something else, and just a joy to watch and be around.
All right, so listen, let's start off with kind of the idea behind how did you guys come up with the odds for this actual tournament that we're doing tonight? You know, you've got Head Chopper at plus 200, and then we go all the way down to Dumping KGB at plus 1100. What went into that? Who came up with these numbers?
Yeah, he was extremely scientific, Zach. I mean, very, very scientific work here. No, I mean, it was really just, going off of what I felt like at the time. Just tribal knowledge. You look at Head Chopper, I think it's widely known that this guy is just an absolute beast when it comes to fantasy sports. CSU Rams, same type of deal. Those guys are, they're on top of the game, and if you don't make them the favorite, you're doing yourself a disservice. But, having them at plus 200, CSU Ram at plus 450, it just felt right to me. And then again, when you look at the odds as you fall down more towards the poker end of things, hoping to draw a little bit of action for those guys. So we make the odds a little bit longer. And, you never know with this type of thing. Dumping KGB, right? He might pop out and surprise everybody. And you make a little bit, you bet a little bit and make a lot. And, we're just trying to draw action all over the place. And the truth is there's a lot of value all across the board. B-Rep C23, obviously somebody that comes to mind. You look at Minji 3K at 725. That's a really nice odd on him. So not very scientific at all though. We didn't go and look at everyone's past experience in daily fantasy. Just kind of going off of tribal knowledge.
Okay, and tell me a little bit about, because you can place bets on this on your forum, correct? And I've got a little link down there right above our chat. And for people that are listening and not chatting, you can just sign into our chat. It's right below the stream. You can sign in with Facebook or Twitter. But yeah, there's a little button there that says Fantasy Bets on who will win at Lou Dogs. Now, tell me about this. So if they click that link, they make an account. They can actually bet like your virtual currency that you guys have called loot?
Yeah, absolutely. Loot Dogs is a pretty interesting concept. We actually reward people for participation with a virtual currency, which we call it Loot, L-U-T-E. It's a kind of a play on loot, your traditional loot cash, right? But as you participate in the forums and contribute to the conversation and the discussion and the debate, you accrue loot, which is a virtual currency. And what we allow people to do is place bets through our integrated sportsbook that we have within the forum. So it's kind of interesting. As you go in, as you typically would in an internet forum, we have a sports book that you can place bets on, right? So we source odds in from Penny, and you can bet your loot on those different events. And obviously, if you lose, no harm because you never put anything in. So that's how we get around the legality. Nobody's risking anything of their own. But if you win, you can cash out to awesome daily fantasy sites. Obviously, Buzz Draft's one of them. We love Brian, really supportive of our community and has helped us from the beginning get the idea off the ground. But we've got several others. And that's how it works. You place free bets, basically. You risk, all you're risking is the participation that you have in the forum. And when you cash out, it's actual cash on the sites that you cash out to. So it's been a lot of fun. We've had a lot of fun with it, and I think the guys really enjoy it. And also, it obviously drives the participation and the discussion every single day.
Sure. No, it's very interesting stuff. And you guys do have a very, it seems like you guys have a very educated, especially, I don't know if they're educated, but educated in sports community. So that's something that everybody should definitely take a look at and go sign up for that. I started to think, though, when we were running through that list, maybe Jason Mercier was just leveling everyone, and he actually is a massive, daily grinder. Maybe, he's Head Chopper or something. I'm joking on that. But, he could have been leveling everybody. That's for sure.
Hey, there's a reason why he's won, $8 million in the past couple of years, right? I mean, the guy knows what he's doing. Maybe he's bluffing everybody out of their shoes. So, but I don't know. We've got him placed in there pretty nice. I wouldn't be surprised to see him walk away with it. I wouldn't be surprised to see any of these guys walk away with it. So it's gonna be a lot of fun to watch, man. We're really looking forward to it over at the community.
Well, and that's something that you bring up that's kind of just sparked my interest. Is anybody could win it. You definitely run a daily fantasy. Well, you run a sports gambling fantasy website, so you have a lot of experience and you see a lot of this stuff. How much variance is going to play into this? Anything can happen. So, I've got a list here. Brian was nice enough to send me over, I believe it's a projections list of, where people are supposed to be. Have you ever seen these things before?
Yeah, I have seen there's different sites out there that offer projections on different players. That's what you're asking, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah,
the guy that was at the top of the list projected to make X amount of, fantasy points was Aaron Rodgers. Now, could he not
yeah.
just get hurt and it be over with?
Yeah, totally. You know what? I think that is the real draw to daily fantasy sports is if you've drafted Aaron Rodgers at the beginning of the year, he goes down in the first game, your entire season's not shot, right? You can bounce back the next night. So I think that what you'll see over the next couple of years, and I know this is kind of skirting away from your question, but is as people get experience in the daily fantasy arena, they're going to find it extremely difficult to get back to the traditional way of playing fantasy sports. And I know that I've got friends in the neighborhood and buddies that I've grown up with and played fantasy sports with in the past. And as soon as they start playing daily fantasy, man, they're hooked because it's such a speed game. It's quick. Your entire season's not shot. There's still strategy, obviously, that plays into it. It's a big skill game, and tons of fun at that. So, but to your point, it could be that these guys draft somebody who's projected to just blow it out of the water the rest of the season, and then something happens, and then you're right. That's where the variance and the risk, obviously. So you never know who's going to win these things and pull it down. I'm so fired up about it, and thrilled that BuzzDraft can put it on for us.
Yeah, I mean, so let's just take a look at this. Aaron Rodgers, for instance, they're saying that he's, projected to have the most amount of fantasy points. And they've actually projected, the numbers, I think, straight out through here. But you got to look at his matchup. So, he's playing this week, I believe, the Packers. And then, the next guy they have is Robert Griffin III, and he's playing, let me find him on the list here. The Giants on Monday night, the matchups are really what's key here, and I think that's what all these guys are going to be really keying in on is the matchups moving forward.
Yeah, it's got to be the matchups. I mean, is the team going to be in the playoff? That the guy that you want, is this team playing for something, or are they in? And the guys just kind of mail it in the rest of the season. You've also got to look at things like weather, right? We're getting close to the end of the year here. It's going to be cold as hell in Green Bay. What if it's snowing? Is Rodgers going to throw a million points? I mean, so there's a whole lot that plays into it, and the guys who are the best prepared, who have done their homework, done the research, are going to do the best. You would think that would minimize some of the variance, but again, you really just don't know what's going to happen. So I'm excited. I know everybody over at Ludogs is excited, and the bigger sites and the people who are proponents of daily fantasy, everybody's excited, as far as I can tell, about what's about to go down tonight.
It's funny. You just brought something up that didn't even cross my mind until you said it. Weather. I wonder how many of these guys have called a meteorologist and got the projections for the next 4 weeks.
You know what? I doubt any of them have actually called a meteorologist, but if anybody was going to do it, it would be the guys that are sitting on top of these daily fantasy leaderboards every week, man. They are some true professionals at what they're doing. So I wouldn't put it past them, but you never know. You never know what's going to happen, weather or otherwise. Weather's injuries.
Projections of weather only go 10 days. So you got to wonder if they're looking into the future. If they've reached out that far, dug that deep to get the research in. Because you're right. Some of these guys that are targeted to make some big numbers, if they're playing outdoors and it happens to be 0 degrees and it's snowing and it's windy, yeah, that's really going to affect their numbers.
Right. That's right. There's a lot of things you got to take into account. That's one of them. So, you don't know. You never know. You don't know what's going to happen over the next couple weeks, and you just gotta roll the dice and see what happens.
How well do you follow fantasy football? I was just going to say, who's up to this point somebody in fantasy football that's a player that's really kind of came out of nowhere? Is there anybody like that this season that's just somebody that wasn't drafted within the first few rounds, or maybe not even drafted at all and just sat on the on the wire? Is there anybody out there this season that has really stepped up to the plate, Brian, or
I think Matt Ryan, or the guy, the quarterback down in Atlanta, has just been he's been lights out. They had a new offensive coordinator come in for the Falcons, and one of the guys on the forum called it at the beginning of the year. His name's Axel. He's a stud, and he's an interesting guy, but you can tell he definitely puts in his work, and he called it at the beginning of the year and said that Ryan was going to have a really, really big year, and he has. So I think he's one of those guys.
Doug Martin is another one. Doug Martin's another one who came and nobody was really sure how he's going to do, and he's crushed so far.
Who's he play for?
He's the running back for the Bucks.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I think the Bucks are somebody that I just was looking up the other day, and their record kind of surprised me. You know, it's weird. I don't really follow it as much as I should, but you know, just as a casual fan, when I saw that, I was just like, holy shit, the Bucks. Where did they come from?
Shiana bringing a little bit of that. Yeah. Sorry, Brian.
Go ahead, Lou. No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say Shiana bringing down a little bit of that Rutgers magic. I don't know how they snuck into the Big Ten, but anyway, that's another story.
All right, so for everybody that's listening too, if you've never kind of like seen this, we're kind of following the same sort of draft procedure and as a case for rules as we did for the WSOP 25K fantasy draft. So it's along the same lines. And so if you're watching the screen right now, I'm going to cut over. You now should be able to see up on your screen. We actually have the actual, this is going to be updated live. Brian, you're going to be handling the updating of the numbers live, but as people draft their numbers, they all start with 200 units, they'll come down. So if somebody puts in 190 units for Aaron Rodgers, you'll see that they only have 10 units left, and they actually can't even do that because they have too many spaces to fill. They have to have enough spaces left to fill up, so we'll be able to see how many they can do, and you'll be able to follow from home what's going on. So that's really a cool aspect of what we're doing this year with this. For the first time, we're doing this live.
we can put in a link to this as well in the chat in the QuadJacks.
Is it
QuadJacks chat box as well? Yeah, so okay, cool. Everybody can view it if we give them the link. So we can switch back and forth to it on the stream, and we can also give them a direct link for anyone who wants to follow the whole time. And I'll be updating that throughout with every player that gets sold. I'll be updating the sheet.
Awesome. And so we also, Brian, we should also tell a couple things I want to tell everybody that's tuning in right now, and the numbers are starting to grow. We've got chat right below the live stream. So just below where you're watching this and listening to this right now, you can see that. I'll switch back to the banner of the draft, or the big one here. Just below that, sign in with Twitter or Facebook. We don't share any information. It's a pretty standard chat. I believe the guys over at Lou Dogs use the same one. So just sign in there. We can shoot the shit. And two, Brian, this is the important part. We have a special bonus for everybody on Buzz Draft for tonight, and the bonus code is the big one, all caps. Correct?
That is correct. So for anybody, yes, it is. Anybody looking to deposit tonight, just use the bonus code the big one in all caps, and that will give you a 30% deposit bonus up to $300. $300 bonus on a $1,000 deposit.
That's really good. And also, let's talk about this quickly. I'm not sure if Mr. Lou Dogs knows about this. I'm sure he does. You guys offer rakeback, which I think is somewhat not the norm in daily fantasy, correct?
That is correct. Yeah. So we're one of the very first sites to offer rakeback. When we first were starting, me coming from a poker background, I was paying $300,000 a year in rake to the site, and rakeback dictated a lot of where I was going to play. Obviously, that's a huge sum of money to be paying every year to a site just to play on that site. It seems ludicrous even thinking about it. So the amount of that you get back really played a huge role in where I was going to give my action and kind of how I considered a site. So coming from that player perspective is something that I really wanted to do when we started this site, and it's just we had it rolled out from day one, was this VIP program.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, and people should take advantage of that. It's one of the only sites that offers the rake back, and why not get some money to the back that you're putting in? So just running down the list of these events that you have coming up in this fall championship. I mean, there's a lot of very nice. Listen, you can get into the first tournament on December 1st, event number 2, which is an NBA for $1, and it's a guaranteed prize pool, $650.
Yep. Yeah. So we structured the whole series so that basically, we'd have buy-ins of pretty much anyone. We figure everyone will be able to get in, the $1 or $5 games. We only have a couple of higher stakes ones, and we made it so the leaderboard is structured so even guys who aren't able to afford that higher one, they're still going to have a really good chance if they're doing well at the $1 or the $5 games. It's a large majority of events that are running, and they're still going to have a really, really good chance to be on top of that leaderboard through that. That was the goal with that.
I'm definitely going to try this one out. This is going to be my first ever daily fantasy tryouts. I'm gonna pop my cherry with the Buzz Draft Fall Championship because it just looks like a lot of fun.
Awesome.
I know absolutely nothing about any of this shit. I have an account on Lou Dogs. I don't think anybody there is helping me yet, but I'll see what I can do. But no, I'm gonna try my luck at daily fantasy. It just, after talking to all these guys, it seems like it's too much fun to not be involved in. So I really want to try this out. It seems like it's going to be a lot of fun.
It is. If you spend a week playing and following your teams, you'll never go back to anything else. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, because I got fed up with season long fantasy. It was just too long, and it would be depressing, like in the first 3 weeks, you got teams that these guys are like, hundreds of points ahead of you, and you're banging your head against the wall, and you finally just give up. I would just give up. So, and that's probably dumb.
Yeah, it's just decided really early on in season long fantasy. The draft is the fun part, but it's also what dictates pretty much how most of your seasons are going to go, and that's. The great thing about daily fantasy is that you have that you're drafting every night. You get to sweat your team every night, and it's not like you can't have one bad draft and just have your year be done. Something you just waited the entire year for the NFL season to start, and you're in your season long fantasy league, and it's just awful. You know what I mean? Nobody likes that, and it takes the life out of it when half the people have just given up halfway through.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go into this, with I think I'm going to have enough of a bankroll to play every one of the events under $10, and only if I have enough, made from profit, I will be playing the 20s and up. So hopefully I'll be able to play every event and I'll be able to cash. I mean, I'm not sure how this really works, but I got my fingers crossed, and I might have the girlfriend pick a couple favorite players or teams based on colors and stuff. So it should be fun.
Definitely.
Mr. Lou Dogs, are you going to participate?
Yeah, I will definitely be jumping in on some of these things. I typically get my head kicked in because I'm just, I'm not very good at paying attention at the individual player level. And if you don't do your research, you can get your hat handed to you in these things, especially with some of the competition that we're seeing over at Buzz Draft recently. So I will definitely be in it. I'm not promising that I'm going to have any wins, but I'm going to have my hat in the ring for sure.
Got it. All right. Well, listen, let's take another quick break. I know that we have a couple of things to do here on the back end to get ready. So let's take another quick break, and we'll be back shortly with more pregame coverage, and we'll be starting the draft sharp at 7 o'clock. So stay right where you are. And like I said, I look forward to doing this, guys. Thanks for coming on for the last few minutes.
Cool. Thanks for having me. Good luck to everybody.
Definitely. We'll talk to you soon.
Later.